listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracy Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians.
Today, I'm going to tell you a little story. And the story is about someone called Frank Dick. So if you're British and you're a certain age and you enjoy watching athletics, you may have heard of Frank Dick. Between 1979 and 1994, he was the British Athletics Federation Director of Coaching. He's one of the most outstanding sports coaches and sports mentors that Britain has ever had. He was behind that golden era with Olympic gold medalists such as Daley Thompson, Steve Ovett, Sebastian Coe. And if you are of a certain age and you did enjoy athletics as I did, that Ovett-Coe rivalry, wasn't that something to behold? Anyway, Frank Dick, he also trained people like Daley Thompson, and he was involved in training programs for Gerhard Berger, Katarina Witt, Boris Becker, Justin Rose. The list just goes on and on and on. So clearly, Frank Dick had something about him. So many years before he was the British coach, he was the Scottish national coach. And he used to go around the tracks of Scotland working with coaches. And every now and again, a little girl from this town or that town would turn up and you'd have this little voice and he'd be working away with the athletes and you'd hear this little voice over and over shouting, Mr. Dick, Mr. Dick, can you coach me? And he said, well, look, ask me later. I'm just working with these people, and when I'm finished, sit down in that stand and I'll come over to you and I promise I'll work with you, and I just need to get finished with these professionals. And so she's 9 years old and she wants to run 100 meters, and he decides that he'll work with her for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And one day she goes to her first race and Frank Dick is there with her. So here she is, 9 years old, wanting desperately to prove herself. And she goes and lines up with another 7 kids. And the starter starts the race. On your marks, get set, bang, go. And she runs down the track and she hurts herself somehow. And she ends up 8 out of 8. So she's run the 100 meters in 18 seconds. And she goes straight to Frank Dick and she says, Mr. Dick, I was last. I did awful. And what he starts to say to her as a coach is just brilliant. And you can see how he was so inspiring. So he said, you weren't last? And she said, well, yes, I was the 8th. And he said, no, you ran that race in 18 seconds. And she said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, you smashed the 20-second barrier that I had down for you. In fact, I thought about this 20-second barrier and I looked at you and I thought you'd probably do 19 seconds. But you didn't. You did 18 seconds, and that means it's your lifetime best performance. It's kind of like your own personal world record. And she said, really? And he said, yes. In some ways, you're the first. And what this means is that you're the first athlete I've ever coached who's running 18 seconds for 100 meters. And the little girl obviously didn't get the irony of that. But he said, now listen, in a few weeks' time, you've got another race. And so in that other race, I want you to get below 18 seconds. So if you're 17.9, you're going to grab a flag and you're going to run around the track, because that's what winning is. Winning is being better today than you were yesterday and repeating that every day. And he explained that if she keeps on working like that, in a few weeks' time, she'll be up there, crossing the line, like the other kids, reaching for the line, pushing her chest out for the line, trying to get the best place possible. And then he said to her, you might think to yourself, well, surely winning is beating them, Frank. And he said, yes, but not if it's outside of our 18 seconds, because then we've killed our definition of winning. And he told this story a number of times. And it's like the reason that you go into tough arenas, whether that's in athletics, whether that's in life, and we can also extrapolate that to riding. The reason that you do it is to be challenged, to perform better. And you can't perform better if you're not challenged. And you don't learn to climb mountains in life by going round them or asking somebody for a ladder. You learn to climb mountains by climbing mountains and seeking out the toughest challenges, because that makes you perform better. And when you keep on going like that, one day you'll be a one and only. But the truth is that you always were, and you always will be. Isn't that a great story? Look him up, Frank Dick. Type it in. He's on YouTube. There's lots of little snippets of him talking. And I just think what a great coach he must have been. Take care, and I'll see you again really soon.